What is up, guys? By here. Genshin Impact 2.0 has a new abyss, and I've seen a lot of people having trouble with this abyss, so I just want to make this quick guide to help you guys understand some mechanics, as well as give you some tips so you guys can have an easier time clearing it, as well as some character recommendations that might give you an easier time. Alright, so for this floor 12, this one's actually going to be one of the hardest floor 12s we've had because the HP values have been scaled up immensely, as well as the other mechanics make this one quite difficult. So don't feel bad if you are struggling with it, but if you have maxed out the previous abysses, you should be able to do this one. Maybe you need to change a couple team comps around or your strategy involved, and we'll go over the mechanics real quick right now. So let's first talk about the leyline disorder, which makes this floor very hard. During this floor, you'll have a thing called high tide and low tide. So during high tide, you'll have 10 seconds to generate your elemental particles or elemental energy in whatever way you normally do. And in addition to this, whenever your character deals an attack, you'll also be generating 5 neutral particles, which generate 2 energy each for a total of 10 energy. And this will occur every 2.8 seconds, and so technically you can proc this effect 3 times within the 10-second window. But during low tide, all characters cannot gain elemental energy, and this also means from elemental particles as well as passives, such as Venti's ultimate passive or Venti's ascension passive ending, supposedly regenerating 15 energy back to allies. It will not return that energy. Jean's passive will not work, Tartaglia's bow ulti passive will not work, and any other sort of energy gain will not work during this time. Even energy particles generated during high tide will not give you energy if you receive them during low tide. So now let's move on to Chamber 1. Chamber 1 is going to be the hardest chamber of this entire floor, so if Chamber 1 seems extremely hard to you and you haven't gone to Chamber 2 or 3, don't worry, Chamber 1 is really hard. Once you beat Chamber 1, 2 and 3 will be a cakewalk for you. Alright, so for Chamber 1, it's going to spawn 3 Nobushi on the first occurrence, where they're going to be on 1 on each side, and if you end up being too far away, this purple one will end up shooting you with a ranged attack. So I recommend that you come over to the left one and hit him and keep him in melee range so that he ends up doing a dash onto you. You can hug this wall so that all 3 Nobushi end up coming to you so you can do a better AoE. One other tip I'll have for you guys is the electric aura. If you see here, after 15 seconds, every 15 seconds, this thing will pulsate and apply an electric aura to all the enemies. No matter how far away they are from the little pulsation, they will still pick up the aura. This aura will make them tankier. It doesn't make them hit harder, but it will cut your damage in virtually half. It takes 4 elemental application units to get rid of the shield. You'll see here that Bennett's E plus his Q got rid of the electric aura. You can do the same with other elements such as Cryo and Hydro, however, Bennett does have 2 strength to it. You can do Swirl and you can do Geo, Crystallize to get rid of the aura as well. But in my experience, for Swirl, it takes 4 to 5 for Sucrose, while Shao takes about 8 plunges. It could deal with something with ICD for Shao. And then Crystallize took, I believe, about 6 attacks, so I wouldn't rely on it too much, but it is still effective. You can also mix elements together or mix reactions together, and it will break it faster. Another thing I want to showcase is the fact that the shields actually don't come back for about 45 seconds if you do end up getting rid of one of them. So you'll see here I got rid of the shield. And right here, this is going to pulsate again, and it's not going to apply the aura on him. Then it's going to pulsate again right here, and it's still not going to be on them. And this is going to be 45 seconds after the first application, and you'll see here they reapply it. After you kill the Nobushi, bear in mind what the timer is at, because once again, it pulsates every 15 seconds, and so this will apply the aura to the Kairagi, and you're going to want to make sure that you don't end up using a lot of your burst skills while they have the electric aura on. Another tip for the Kairagi is that you can end up starting over here near this pillar, and if you do so, these guys will come over to you either with a dash or a thrust, whatever it is, and you can kind of keep them together a little bit better so you can AoE them, but make sure you stay near the wall. The problem with staying with the wall, though, is also that your camera can get really messed up like this, and you might get hit by these attacks. And the 2 major attacks you're going to watch out for these guys is when they raise their sword up in the sky and slam down, as well as the thrust and the one where they sheath their sword and do the spin attack. The one last tip I'll have for you guys is the healing mechanic these guys do. So how they heal is basically where if one of the Kairagi die and the other one is still alive, the other one will queue up a heal in their next moveset. However, if the other Kairagi is still queuing up attack, he'll finish up his attack before he heals. Like here, I'll kill this guy and see how this guy is still attacking with his thrusts. And right here, after he finishes his last thrust, he'll end up raising his sword to heal himself. So try to make sure you kill both Kairage at the exact same time. Something that can help you kill them at the exact same time or before they can heal is that you use a petrification such as Zhongli's ultimate or a freeze to make it so that they can't heal. When you first start the second half, it's just going to be 2 Pyro Fatui agents, so you would just deal with them like normal. I'm sure you guys have fought a lot of Pyro Fatui agents. It's best to use a Nemo character to group them together, especially when they go invisible. You can use something like Ganyu's ultimate to help AoE them down. You can also do some fall damage cheese by using Gene, if you guys have ever seen that before, by throwing them from the sky, and then they'll take fall damage there. Like you see, they take 62,000 there. Just keep in mind the Pyro Fatui agents have a lot of pyro resistance, as well as Electric Sensei Mage has a lot of electric resistance, so try not to bring those, or at least bring something that does resistance down. And once the Pyro Fatui agents are dead, it'll spawn a Mirror Maiden as well as Electric Sensei Mage. The Mirror Maiden will only have 2 attacks unless you have a marking on you. The marking will apply if you get hit by one of those water wheels or water wells, whatever you want to call them. The other attack she does is she shoots a water ball at you. If you do end up getting a marking on you, it will allow her to cage you as well as do another attack. This attack here is the little burst cage that will appear on you, as well as the other attack is going to be the ice cage. She kind of swaps back and forth between them. The cage will make it so that you can't move. You can still attack out of it though. Once you become marked, there is no way to get rid of the mark. You can't cleanse it with Bennett or Gene or any of the sort, so the only way you can actually get rid of it is if your character dies, and then you'll become marked again with another water well. Keep in mind the electric aura on the first half still exists on the second half. All the same rule set still applies to the second half, so just bring some units to be able to get rid of the shield, and then you'll have free reign to deal damage on them for about 45 seconds. The Mirror Maiden is going to be the one you're going to be most concerned about, as she's very thick and he kind of doesn't really move around towards you. The Electric Sensei Mage will. One good way to deal with them is to bring something like Venti to pull them together and then do some AoE, such as with Ganyu or Ayaka or anything of that sort. But also keep in mind that the Mirror Maiden is a thick lady who kind of doesn't like being picked up a lot of times, so you'll have to be able to knock her up. Now let's move on to character recommendations for specifically Chamber 1, because I know the majority of people struggling on floor 12 is only with Chamber 1. So for the first half, the character I found the most consistency with was with Eula, as she does have a great potential to clear fast, but at the same time, if she does mess up, she can still kill the enemies by just whacking them with her sword. I would say for team comp, just bring any sort of standard team comp with Zhongli Eula or Eula Diona. However, keep in mind the Diona battery is not really that great because of high tide and low tide. And also keep in mind you don't necessarily need to bring an Electro unit because the enemies will have an Electro aura on them. However, you still can bring the Electro unit just because there is about a 45-second downtime where they won't have Electro on them either. The next character I highly recommend is a C4 or C6 Xiangling. If you pair it on a national team or a Tartaglia team or even with any other main DPS, she ends up adding a lot of off-field damage. When you pair it with a Hydra user, she ends up becoming the main DPS. The last thing I would recommend to you guys is a freeze team, because I did tell you guys can freeze them so that the Nobushi don't end up healing, but make sure that your freeze team is quite strong, because my freeze team is a little bit on the weaker side, and so they ended up clearing about 140 as compared to a lot of the other DPSs that cleared at about a 130 mark. Now, that doesn't mean you have to use a freeze team, because I did test out every single other main DPS, and every single main DPS did clear the first half about roughly the same time, at least with my power level at level 80 out of 80 and level 6 talents. And you may want to save the freeze team for the second half so that you can stop the Sensei Mages from teleporting around or the Fatui Power Agents from moving around like crazy as well. Some other recommendations I have for the second half is that you end up bringing Zhongli and make sure that you have a strong ultimate, so make sure that your substats are geared towards his ulti damage rather than his shield, so that you can do a petrification as well as a large damage chunk, because his ultimate only costs 40 energy. Also bring some Anemo users such as Venti or Sucrose to bring them together, as well as you can use Xiao to go and plunge and knock them up and down constantly over and over. Just make sure that you bring another character such as Chi-Chi or Diona or Xiangling so that you can get rid of that Electro Aura when they do get it. Alternatively, just bring a heavy hitting DPS so that you can kill the thick Mirror Maiden as fast as possible, preferably something that also has AoE so you can AoE the Electric Sensei Mage when she does get close as well. Alright, just so we can keep the video short, I'm not going to go into super detail about Chamber 2 and Chamber 3 because this video is getting a little bit long. I will give you a little bit of tips though. So for Chamber 2, just bring a Cryo unit if you want to deal with the Hydro Abyss Mage shield, as well as it can deal with the Electro shield. It'll first spawn these two Minotaurs, you end up killing them, and it'll spawn the Lava Troll on top of you, and the Hydro Abyss Mage will teleport to you. As for the second side with the Magokenki, the only real tips I have is just remember that range attacks don't really work too well on it, although you can brute force it with Ganyu or whatever strong character you have that is ranged. And also when the fight does start, for the first 10 seconds of the fight, you cannot deal any damage to him. He is invulnerable, so make sure you go and use your elemental skills or whatever to generate the energy for the characters you don't have any burst skills for. And the other tip is that about 25% of his HP through, or about 15%, he will go into ethereal form and float up into the sky and slam down his swords. During that moment, he cannot take any damage. He is invulnerable, so make sure you don't waste your skills or burst skills at that point. The rest of the fight is pretty much self-explanatory as the other Magokenki fights, so just practice on the Magokenki fights out in the overworld, other than the fact that this guy has 1.5 million HP on the second half. Also, don't bring a freeze team to the second half fighting the Magokenki, because Magokenki can't be frozen, and if that's the case, you won't be able to get that extra 20% crit rate buff from hitting frozen targets with Blizzard Strayer set. One last tip I have for the Magokenki is to make sure that you take advantage of the Blessing of the Abyssal Moon buff, where if you have full energy on a character and you use normal attacks, charge attacks, or plunge attacks, you will reduce their defense up to 5 stacks total, and each stack is independent. So while the first 10 seconds of the fight happens where you can't damage him, you can still hit him and lower his defense down. Just keep in mind the Blessing of the Abyssal Moon buff does change with each Abyss reset, so maybe by the time you're watching this video, this Moon buff might not be active at the time. Chamber 3 is probably the easiest of the 3 chambers. On the first half, you're going to find a Rune Hunter. Just remember that if you end up going too far away or too high up in the sky with something like Shao or with Kazuha E-Hold, the Rune Hunter will fly up. So you will need a bow character to shoot him in the eye to disable him and make him stunned and fall down. Once you kill him, it will spawn a Rune Scout, Rune Cruiser, and a Rune Defender all right next to each other, all where the Rune Hunter was. And I would recommend that you focus on the Rune Defender because he can put a shield up to block damage, but try to ultimately AoE them all down. On the second half, you'll just have a Rune Guard at the start, and you can just easily kill him, shoot him in the eye to disable him, or just beat him down. And then after you kill him, a Rune Scout will spawn where the Rune Guard was, and then 2 Rune Destroyers will spawn on the side of the maps. I recommend that you go over to one of the Rune Destroyers on the side, as the Rune Scout will float over to you, and the other Rune Destroyer will potentially teleport to you, or he'll just like shoot a laser down into the ground to try to hit you. Alright, that's going to be all for this Floor 12 Abyss guide. If you guys still need help after watching this guide, feel free to swing by on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/KLMPie, where I can give you guys some specific Abyss team comp recommendations or other help to help you guys finish the Abyss. If you guys did enjoy the video, please do consider leaving a like. Comment down below if you like this harder style Abyss, or if you guys wanted to go back to an easier format. Make sure you guys subscribe for more Genshin Impact guides and content. Follow me on Twitter for quick, short Genshin updates, as well as other sort of tweets. And thank you guys once again for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.